A round of applause for my favorite bird, Professor Chad the Bird!
Humans! Arthropoids! Mortals! Beware! Oh yeah, I said beware. Hell fucking yeah, I said beware. Because there's a lot to beware of. Nature has itself a parade of strange and unusual, which is kind of fucked up, because nature is the usual. The only elements we got, all in nature, the law, the call, is nature. But then platypuses, and you're like, the fuck? And within nature be ye, humanity, and wherein be ye, be more to beware. For the mind, humans, the mind can conceive of some wild shit that flies in the face of nature's own weirdness. So yes, I say beware. Some deeply unhinged, crazy fuck nuts can happen in that wiggly meatloaf in your brain pan. Sparked to life by natural voltage, jerking your doing parts into acts of unspeakable peculiarness and eldritch cookitude that both frighten and astound the rest of us in the animal kingdom, of which ye are guests. You, yeah, you, beware of yourself. Your neighbor, your friend Tiffany, who almost died once choking on an olive on one of those insane Bloody Marys with a half-grilled cheese, bacon, and a full-on appy platter and a stick at Wicked Hop in Milwaukee, which you created, humans. Tiffany, almost a victim of her own species' capability to get weird. Hubris. It doesn't take much to get a crazy thought going, to grow inside that head sponge, churning and burning the day and night, because the mind works while you sleep, downloading and processing new information into more ideas that might jerk you awake in the middle of the night. And then you write down what you were thinking, and in the morning you're like, the fuck does waffle shoes mean? Or perhaps the thoughts will just writhe in your skull goo, creating anxieties yet unthought of, not to be used and formed in the real, but only specially made for you to gasp about. Not inspiration, only a nightmare. So beware, says I. Nightmares are beyond your control. They're part of ye, a feature, not a glitch. Just your own nature kicking you in the head dick while you sleep to remind you who's boss. Originally thought of as a demon sitting on your chest, called a mare, causing inner gut-wrenching torture. And wouldn't it just be your luck, it only arrives at night. Popping a squat, its butt meats beguiling you into terror. Turns out it's just stress. What isn't? It's part of your evolutionary need to protect yourself when asleep and in danger, helpful in its horrors. There to be used, so you see, there is power in your beef burger brains, electrified and conscious. I, me, the power, the gift, the thoughts. Each new one an inch from madness. The best ideas are, and when harnessed and made to live, nightmares can walk in nature. Sewn together from concepts and bits of technology, brought to frightening animation through endless toil and shirt-soaking late nights like in Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley's novel Frankenstein. I don't know if you've heard of it. Ye of strange souls bound to prosperity and ruined by slight ligaments. That's from the book. Yeah, I read it. An idea can be powerful, crafty, brilliant, and more often than not, like Frankenstein's monster itself, unforgettable, awesome, and weird. My tale begins in 1983. Beware! For here there be things strange and awesome like Nintendo, which debuted in Japan that year as the Famicom or Family Computer. Humanity was junked up on video games. So many companies dropping consoles to get in on the action on the streets. Atari 2600, Odyssey 2, Intellivision, ColecoVision. Humanity was fiending for new shit, looking for the latest thrill and fix. Your mind swirling with ideas, ways, needs for hot games. Because, like, reality sucks. And this was the beginning of the 80s. To make matters more insane, IBM had introduced their PC 3 years earlier, so it was pushing in on the action. Better graphics, more shit you could do. The video game market responded with more, flying too close to the sun, precariously, until it crashed into a large-scale recession from 1983 to 1985, known as the Atari shock in Japan. The market's flooded. Third-party developers picking the bones. The IBM PC strolling the debris like Terminators after Judgment Day. Plus, the games were the same and most of them sucked. We could summon the legend of the E.T. game for Atari, but that's a whole other seance. Beware, though, for in the rubble of the video game crash of 1983, as there always is, was a human idea. Game designer and artist Isabel Garrett noticed that the problem was programmers were making the game, not game makers. So she called up Parker Brothers to see if maybe there was a way to get board games in on the action, reminding them that it was not the Atari that was the most popular piece of human home technology at the time. They were looking in the wrong place. Not the video game console, which had crashed into the sea that year, but above it. Or next to it, depending on whatever fake wood paneled media center you had at the time. The VCR. Isabel figured the easiest game to translate would be Clue or Cluedo, because there's only so much you can do in Clue. And since Parker Brothers already owned it, they were like, shit, let's fucking do it. But the only problem was, in her own words, she'd never played Clue or had any idea how a VCR worked. Pulling together all that they could, filming scenes in secret in a private home like Dr. Victor Frankenstein himself, grave robbing and pulling apart and back together the pieces from the dead world of board games with VCR technology and the lore of Clue. The lightning crackled, the electricity spazzed out of the bits and parts of a crashed market. Not Icarus, but Prometheus. They fashioned into existence Clue, the VCR mystery game. Limping to life in 1985, the VHS board game was alive! It's alive! It's alive! And since the movie Clue had just come out, it was fucking popular. The way it works is, you put in a VHS tape, ask your dad, and set up the board game. The VHS part tells you what to do as you play. In the case of Clue, you had to rewind and fast forward. And like a reanimated corpse, just kind of letting it do its own thing, it was groundbreaking, but it was confused. The rules were a little complicated. Even the cast of the VHS part of the game couldn't figure the game out. And yet, board games had gone beyond death, knowing what it was to be God. Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, WWF, even RoboCop got a VHS board game. And for the most part, like if Frankenstein just kept going untethered, their results were weird and confusing. There was one called Skull and Crossbones that was so bad, the instructions reminded you that you did not need to watch the VHS tape to play it. That was until 1991. Across the waters, something big had been growing. Brett Clement and Phil Tanner, former journalists for this kids show called Simon Townsend's Wonder World, Ask Your Australian Dad, got together and started making board games after Brett did a story on the 1984 game Teacher's Quiz. He figured they could do that in an Australian take on it, and theirs came in what looked like a beer cooler. And then they made a game called Dare in 1988, which had nothing to do with the Dare program. In fact, it encouraged the opposite, because it was a Truth or Dare board game by Australians who had aforementioned marketed their last game in beer coolers. But all this time, something was brewing in the brain. Something new, something dark, something bewareable. At the time, the VHS board game was rocking and popular, but not very easy to understand or use because humans had to rewind and fast forward the tape, ask all the dads, and they figured, what if the tape was the timer? Like Frankenstein himself, they had money, being board game barons themselves. So they self-financed a pilot starring commercial actor Wenanti Nozzle, noted for his aggressive Guinness ads. They put him in a shroud with a little creepy makeup on, shooting only above the waist as they could not afford full body shots and cuts. Having Wenanti call out the players at certain times in real time. The board game reflecting time codes on cards as well. The players playing a simple collection game, not of clues, but of keys, searching a graveyard for the chance to escape. Each of the players playing a monster ghoul zombie looking for their own precious ticket out of the grave and back to life. The VHS tape timer ticking down the minutes in an hour you have left to survive. It was kind of Saw for kids. All the while waiting for the host, who was called the gatekeeper, to pop his head back in. A lightning flash, thunder, and he was back to fuck up your game. The grave diving, backstabbing game known as Atmosphere across the ocean because of copyright issues. Here in the States by its original name, christened after that which is the ultimate Frankenstein's monster of the human mind, Nightmare. Millions were sold. Expansions were made. Nightmare, the VHS horror board game. The pinnacle of the form. The best the VHS board game could be. An idea so marketable and simple. It's as if itself was sitting on the chest of humanity, tormenting and waiting for it to wake up. Like the ancient mythical mare of the word itself. A nightmare, pitting children against each other, haunted by various monsters on TV, while they, also a monster, wandered a cemetery. And though already dead, they had only an hour to find their keys to get out, leading them to the center, where they draw their nightmares from a pile, hoping it is not their own. Eventually, the time of the VHS board game would become the DVD board game. And though Nightmare kept reinventing, there was only so much life left in those reanimated bones. And like the dancing plague of 1518, or like that one time everyone was really into swing music in the 90s, the VHS board game returned to the grave. Nightmare having a short trip because it was already about that life. In a time now of internet gods and monsters, they belong dead, but they are only dormant. For you too can find it on YouTube, the board on eBay, and you should if you dare. Beware, humans! Beware the mind! For it is no game. And as you go home tonight, in the dark, in the fog, your mind will always be working. It's always lurking in your skulls, searching for a new idea out of all the old ones to sew together and bring to life for a moment, for all time. But beware, 'cause it just might be fucking awesome. And that was class!
Get to class!